Welcome to Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Ooh, there we go. It's a 2 for Tuesday. And to start us off, we have a lot of fun scammers to tease. So MAGA has been really leaning into the whole vaccine grift. And it is a grift because now we see that they are trying to get money out of people. To introduce us to what's going on, let's have a look at a little someone called Trey Crowder, a.k.a. Liberal Redneck.
Well, in case you missed it, the internet has given conspiracy theorists another nugget of idiocy to gnaw on, and they're loving it. Here's the deal. You may recall a few weeks ago, the Buffalo Bills' Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field from cardiac arrest. Well, these people say that, in fact, Damar perished that night and has since been replaced by the NFL with a body double/clone who refuses to show its face in public and insists on making Masonic hand gestures. Well,
I gotta say, I do love when the conspiracy wing of MAGA pops up and you get that extra layer where they full on say, no, somebody you're going to see a lot of in the near future is actually dead. That's the best. Didn't they do that with Joe Biden? I know they said Joe Biden wasn't the president and then also blamed Joe Biden for decisions the president makes, but it is especially fun. It's got that just that extra spice on it when they say a live person is dead and is making Masonic hand gestures.
That's simple enough. I feel silly now. Here I was over here assuming that he was bundled up like that either because Buffalo is the devil's snow globe or he was experiencing lingering effects from his ordeal. But turns out what happened was he died, and then the NFL called up that Jurassic Park scientist and was like, "Can you do safeties? Hey, don't forget to teach our new clone how to do all the secret Illuminati hand signals in public, because as we all know, conspiracies ain't no fun without any breadcrumbs." That's what they say happened. Now, if you're the type of person whose brain works, you may think to yourself, but why? And they say it's because Damar died that night as a result of complications from receiving the, you guessed it, COVID vaccine. There it is. Makes sense now, right? Yeah, because
Okay, so I've always wondered, like, if you genuinely are trying to convince a crowd of people of a conspiracy, why wouldn't you go with the easier explanation? Like the easier to maintain explanation. Like, why wouldn't you just say, if you were under the belief the guy died, why wouldn't you say he died of something else? Excuse me. Like, I mean, you're straw man in this. When you're imagining a conspiracy, you're dreaming one up. Why, like, in your head, these villains? If Damar Hamilton had died, wouldn't they just say he died of something else, and that would be the conspiracy? I mean, I think it's because the people who are doing this are not obviously following logic. They take, in fact, a set of facts that go with reality and have to do fan fiction about it. So they're constrained by that. They can't just have smart villains in their conspiracies. They have to have something that bends around so that, like, a normal incident with a football player getting injured, having a serious heart condition, slowly recovering, yada yada, has to be in their cartoon world. I get it. It's just, if you're reading the conspiracy theory, I'm surprised nobody has that train of logic crop up. At least I never see it in the comments in these wackadoo forums.
We all know, move aside, QAnon. Anti-vax is the current Beyonce of the basement brigade. They're all over it, trying to convince the rest of the world that millions of Americans are falling over dead from the jab.
Is QAnon not anti-vax? I just assumed, any wacky thing, I just assumed Q was on board with.
I always wonder how they think the millions of us who received the shots and are totally fine are going to react to those statements. Like, do they think we're going to read their ramblings and think to ourselves, oh, damn, maybe the government did try to use that needle to explode my heart. Thank you, Joe Biden Antichrist 69, for opening my eyes to this. It's ridiculous, but these conspiracy theories are out of control, man, you know, and I blame the internet for it. Because that whole thing's always been kind of a part of human nature. You know, even hundreds of years ago, if you got enough slack-jawed peasants together in a pub and one of them brings up the unmarried lady down the street who likes to dance, before you know it, things are getting pretty burned the witchy around there, right?
No.
But today, those people are no longer confined to the village inn. They all congregate together in the world's largest digital pub, and they're on there every day priming each other's dumb pumps and ruining comment sections around the globe, right? And I think I know what's going on there. I think that even our nation's worst and dimmest still want to feel as though they know things, right?
Partially, I think that is it. And I realize he's doing a bit. You gotta not necessarily split hairs. I do want to say it is also very much cosplay. Like, this is extremely. If you ever hang out with cosplayers, of which I deeply enjoy doing, by the way. In fact, let me use a more specific term. LARPers. You ever hang out with LARPers? I usually don't have the energy to like maintain a story over yada yada yada, but I've gone to LARPing events just because they're fun. And it's exactly this, except they know it's pretend, which makes all the difference. So, like, yeah, there's a storyline they're all following, and they're all sort of building towards it. They're all making their little contribution. And, yeah, the only difference is they don't do this and then talk about real stuff for a second, you know? They do this and keep on LARPing about the purity of the white race or whatever nonsense.
And when you spend all of your life not knowing much in the way of things, allowing the internet to convince you that instead you are one of a select few clear-headed free thinkers who are awake in a world filled with placated, gently dozing sheep people has a certain appeal to it, right? And it's bad news for those of us who still care about things like reality, objectivity, and stuff that does happen, because it feels like the internet lights a new torch and adds it to that peasant mob every day. But all I know for us to do is stick together, call them on their bullshit, and cling to the truth as though our lives depend on it, because honestly, it just might.
100% truth. I mean, Trey Crowder. Whoa, didn't mean to do that. Trey Crowder absolutely nailed it. It's correct. That's 2 for 2 on the channel. So, what can we do about it? I would recommend, if you have somebody who is MAGA in your community, and this is funny, but it's not a joke. Genuinely, they are looking for a hobby. That's it. They like that feeling of being in control, but what they have demonstrated beyond everything else is that they are bored. So, introduce them to something like LARPing. Introduce them to MMO RPGs. That's a healthier outlet for these feelings. That's a healthier way to play pretend. Essentially, the folks that tease video games but put on hunting camo and pretend it's military camo and then run around in their backyard with an actual gun shooting at targets. That crowd needs a healthier outlet. And I'm just saying, keep your eyes peeled for them. Buy them that mystery box game. You know, where you get mailed a mystery and you sit around with the family and try to solve it. Do that for them. Because the vast majority of MAGA conspiracy nuts, I promise you, are just looking for something to do, and they are just angry because culturally they are a hot potato. Nobody wants them, with good reason. They're awful, but it's an entire voting block full of that, guys. But you know what? A healthy gaming community can help that guy become just a regular player. So consider that. It won't help all of them, though. Here's why. some of them, particularly those that take things way too far, some of them are in it for a different reason. Some of them in this toxic relationship of con artists and the conned are the con artists. Let's have a look at Rebel HQ. They did an interesting collection of videos of people faking vaccine side effects.
First, I want to introduce myself, and my name is Sean Skelton, and I'm very real. And unfortunately,
I'm very real.
This is also very real. I didn't know what else to do other than to just come on live and show everybody what my body is going through.
For the record, this lady is fine. Been to a doctor. Nothing wrong with her. Nothing wrong with everything from the neck down. And the things that are wrong with her brain are not physical.
At all wakening hours of my day. I don't know what's happening to my body, okay? It's a good question to me as it is for you, but I know that on Monday, I was a very functioning person, zero medical issues. I work every day. I got the COVID vaccine, the Moderna, on January the 4th. On Tuesday, I had mild flu-like symptoms. I went to work. Stomach pains and diarrhea, some. Wednesday, I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't able to go to work. My tongue began to spasm out of control.
Sounds like this person's main problem is capitalism. Just saying.
By Thursday morning, I was in full body convulsions.
I'm Ravana, and welcome back to Rebel HQ. That woman, Sean Skeleton, posted a video of her shaking and gyrating to Facebook, claiming that it was caused by the COVID vaccine. However, PolitiFact did some investigative research and found out that although she did go to the hospital for her symptoms, none of the tests they ran, MRI, CT scans, came back with any answers, and the CDC made a statement saying they are not common or even known among people who have side effects from the vaccine.
Yeah, I should think not, because that's crazy. That's crazy. That's not a thing that happens when you take the COVID vaccine. Or any vaccine that I'm aware of. And the reason I can say this with such confidence is because these mother effers have been tested like crazy. And they have gone into millions and millions of bodies now. They've been tested by the populace, as well as the FDA, who tested it extensively before it released it to the populace. It is not something that happens with the COVID vaccine. So why are they doing it? Ravana's got a couple of answers here.
Her doctor also told her that her symptoms were likely a result of stress and not at all related to the vaccine. So, without a shred of evidence, she's...
So, for the record, her doctor has told her not the vaccine. Doctor can't say, you're lying. That's all this is. You're a liar who's lying. To be fair, it's possible it's psychosomatic. It's possible she literally just got so worked up with her LARPing that she's, in the zone, let's say. But most likely, it's a third option, not psychosomatic. Not just faking it for attention, but faking it for attention.
Her
so that
shaking
let's
to the
see
vaccine.
This next person.
And she's far from the only one.
Good Lord.
Let's calm down.
Just video it.
There's no sense of
Looks
home.
heartbreaking.
It doesn't help.
If you don't know that it ain't real.
That was a video of Angelia DeSalle from Louisiana, who claims that her shaking was also caused by the vaccine, although there's no information to verify that. And a spokesperson for the CDC told PolitiFact in an email that the agency has, quote, no adverse event data regarding a case of this nature out of Louisiana. But why would people lie about this, you might be wondering? Well, this next video might give us a little insight into that. This woman, whose hand is miraculously steady as she picks up and sets down her can of Heineken, is Carolina Bork out of Louisiana, who claims that she's been shaking since she got the COVID vaccine 22 months ago. And here is her GoFundMe, where she's raised $2,363 to apparently help her heal from her, quote, vaccine injury.
There it is. They're scamming each other. We live in such a capitalist dystopia that it is common practice for people to use GoFundMe to try to pay for the medical procedures they require. That's true. In this capitalist dystopia, we also have con artists who will do things like this. 26 donors gave her $2,300 because she pretended to have an adverse long-term reaction to a vaccine that has been politicized. That's $2,300. That's about $100 per donor. So she took $100 from 26 people that cared about her. Somehow I doubt these were random people. It's 26. That's got to be friends and family, right? She scammed her friends and family for about $100 each. Capitalism is what's wrong with these folks, by and large. Be warned, COVID scams, I suspect, are going to become more and more common, particularly because, let us not forget that we don't know all the adverse side effects of actually getting COVID. We do know that it appears to have long-term effects on your heart. I shouldn't say no. There is evidence to suggest that it has cumulative long-term effects on the heart, as in the more times you get COVID, the weaker your heart gets. That is being studied. In all fairness, it's a brand new disease. That is still being studied. But we have had, commensurate with infections, heart problems rise in the U.S. Not commensurate with vaccinations, commensurate with COVID infections. That also means this crowd, this anti-vax crowd, is going to get, if that is true, is going to get sicker and sicker. Their hearts are going to get worse and worse. We already had at Diamond's funeral, or maybe it was Silk. One of them passed away. They didn't say from what, but they are two anti-vaxxers, and they have been hush-hush about the cause of death. The surviving member of Diamond and Silk gave a eulogy which focused on how if you get the vaccine, that can somehow make somebody who hasn't taken the vaccine sick with vaccine symptoms. Again, non-existent things. Probably preparing to blame her death, her COVID death, on being around somebody who was vaccinated. In other words, preparing their audience for cases of COVID deaths that are going to keep cropping up and probably get worse amongst that crowd. Vaccinated have much less to worry about. not only are you less likely to catch COVID at all, but if you do catch it, you seem to get a lighter case of it because your body has prepared defenses. It stays with you less long. Generally speaking, you get the better version of everything. Good to get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Get your booster. Stop disease from spreading. Be a responsible American. And as part of our responsible American kit, we have to, these days, look out for the irresponsible Americans, which include the anti-vaxxers who are going to get sicker and sicker as the days go on, and they are going to try to spread more and more misinformation as the days go on, because somebody found a way to make money off it. Hell of a country. Let's do a palate cleanser. Even though that was humorous in and of itself in a dark way. Beau, the fifth column. He talked about the eggs in America, the egg shortage in America. We had avian flu, speaking of disease, going around. The answer to that was, unfortunately, kill a whole lot of chickens. As a direct result, prices of eggs have gone up. Supply of eggs have gone way down. And that brings us to an interesting point he makes about supply and demand. Let's hear the man.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Beau again. So today we are going to talk about eggs and supply and demand. And we're going to kind of branch out from eggs and talk about other forms of supply and demand as well. So, if you don't know, the price of eggs has gone up dramatically in the United States, depending on the source you use, anywhere from, I think it's 62 to like 104%. Big jump in the price of eggs. Now, the industry line, their narrative, their story on why this is occurring is increased demand and avian flu. Does this check out? Yeah. On the surface, yes. Avian flu, it's a thing. It's happening.
So he's going on I just want to take a quick side note here. So I don't know how much of a problem it is for you personally. I buy about 1 carton of eggs every 2 months. Like if the price triples, I don't want it to, but that's a sustainable thing for me, because it goes from, I can't even remember how much eggs cost, $10 to $30. I don't want to pay $30 for freaking eggs, but it's sustainable, at least until this levels out. What I worry about is the restaurant industry and those who make things with eggs. I'm hoping the life cycle of a chicken is such that we have some laying eggs within the year, because or a new bunch of chickens laying eggs, because long term that could be bad for all food prices.
Okay. They've lost tens of millions of birds, which means less eggs at a time of more demand. Prices go up. Yeah, that tracks. Now, at the same time, there is a group of people who thinks it's a little bit more than that, and they have sent a letter or a complaint to the FTC. And it's kind of alleging price fixing among some of the larger suppliers, artificially inflating the price. Does that check out? I looked, and yeah, there's kind of a discrepancy between the amount of birds lost versus the price increases. Looking at it seems a little bit odd. But to be honest, I don't know enough about the egg industry to make a real judgment on it. That's something that the FTC is going to have to do. Don't expect them to make any kind of comment on it, because they generally don't comment on anything.
Another side note. I love how politically active everybody is. I hate that MAGA is politically active, but at least at least they're paying attention, you know? Like, back in the day, the only people that ever wrote in or called up or did anything about the little stuff, if it wasn't a presidential matter, were like people that were news junkies. And it was fine, but like, you need the average folks to care for something to really get done. It's delightful.
Okay, so you have a price increase. People don't like those, generally. So there is a ready source of people to be tapped into, to inflame, to provoke, to outrage. And if you can tie it to one of your key issues, that's good politics. Is that happening? Of course. Of course. You have a lot of Republicans right now trying to tie the price of eggs in the United States to the southern border. There is just shock and dismay and outrage.
They, on the right wing, love using the southern border for everything. Everything. I just want to remind you, George Santos, in one of his early, clearly bought by Russia tweets, he was trying to make a case for the U.S. to not help Ukraine at all, because for some reason that was bad. And the reason he chose was, oh, look at the southern border. Look at that southern border. What does that have to do with Ukraine? Not a thing. What do eggs have to do with the southern border? Not a thing. Not really. I'm sure there was some incident that he's going to talk about that they're using as a whatever. But there's just no connection. It is distraction politics, and it is distraction politics and projection politics are literally all the GOP does. They don't have regular, good old-fashioned politics. Not that they're willing to talk to you about. They don't want you to know why they do what they do. They don't want you to know what they're trying to do. They only have distraction politics and projection politics. Distraction politics being getting you to care about anything other than what they're working on, including starting whole projects just for you to pay attention to while they do other stuff. And projection politics, which is what they have instead of therapy. Just accusing other people of the very things they are guilty of and feel bad about.
From Republicans right now, that Americans are going south of the border to buy eggs and then bring them back. Now, something I want to point out before we go any further, avian flu's down there as well. And there are some pretty stiff penalties for bringing eggs back, especially if they're not declared. And they're way more than a carton of eggs. So just maybe that's not the best course of action. But the question is, why is the Republican Party suddenly focusing in on this? This type of thing has been happening for a while with, like, I don't know, insulin, people's meds. People will go south of the border to get them because they're cheaper.
Ooh, Beau, I can answer. Because it's happening now, and they can blame Joe Biden. And if they were to talk about insulin being too expensive, they might be asked to do something about it. They have no interest in.
Why wasn't it brought up then? This isn't a whataboutism. The answer is simple. Demand. Demand. There aren't enough people who have to deal with that. There aren't enough people who need insulin, who live close enough to the border, who see the impacts. It's not true with eggs. More people.
So he's going off of not why Republicans are talking about, but why anybody is talking about it. Fair enough.
Will buy eggs. So this is something that they can tap into. They don't actually care that Americans are in these kinds of financial straits because they don't care about something that is literally required to live. Okay? But there's a demand for it.
He is talking about Republicans.
And because there's a demand for it, somebody's going to provide it. And that's what's happening. And then they're also talking about how there are people who are apparently not doing this for themselves, but like doing it for a profit, bringing eggs across the border for a profit.
Ah, yes, the egg mules.
For, again, just a reminder, the penalties for that are even more severe.
Can you imagine, like, an egg cartel cropping up? Oh my God! Yeah, the dangerous. Oh my God! Smuggling them by keystering them. I find that very funny. You're getting searched. You lay an egg. Look, I don't know from science. I'm just a border guard. I guess it's fine. Get out of here. I'm gonna go try to drink until I forget this.
And that brings up something else. Why would people do it? Because there's a demand, right? If there's a demand, the supply will eventually emerge. Maybe, since they're kind of acknowledging this with this part, with eggs, maybe it's time to transfer that logic, which is sound, to other things.
Ooh.
Rather than advocating for billions and trillions of dollars to be spent on a 60-year failed war, maybe it would be better trying to reduce demand. Especially if you're also currently talking about how much money the U.S. spends on worthless things. The demand exists in the United States. Somebody's going to supply it. Somebody will supply it. When you were talking about drugs, somebody's going to supply it because there's a demand. It's just like eggs. Somebody is going to supply it. If you want to reduce that, you have to reduce the demand. The militarization, all of the stuff that they're advocating, the just draconian sentences, this isn't going to work. It hasn't. We've been doing this for decades, and it's a failure. You have to reduce demand. When we're talking about eggs and people doing it with eggs, there's not an outcry to severely punish them, right? That's not the Republican stance.
Boom.
The Republican stance is that the government is doing something wrong, because they've got to blame this on Biden. The government's doing something wrong, and we should eliminate the need for people to do this.
Boom.
Reduce demand. Apply that strategy elsewhere. Apply that strategy to places that have just caused just immense amounts of suffering over the years, rather than continuing failure after failure after failure. Shift the strategy. Reduce demand rather than increase militarization. Anyway.
It is just a thought. So, real quick, let's compare George Santos talking about the southern border to Beau of the fifth column talking about eggs. Difference being, George Santos didn't have a through line. There was no philosophy behind what he was saying. Beau of the fifth column is using this as a jumping off point for talking about his political philosophy and how it might apply, or rather a political philosophy, and how it might apply to other policies. That is a good example of using one issue to talk about another, so that you're talking about a general governing principle. Good. There's a reason I like that guy. He does a great job. He also talks in language that I think the GOP understands. So how do you reduce demand? Well, In 2018, Michiganders put something on the ballot. It was Proposition 1. And I believe 56% of us voted to pass Proposition 1. Proposition 1 made it legal to sell marijuana in the state of Michigan. It's fantastic. That's an easy way to reduce demand. If you want to make your prisons a heck of a lot less empty, if you want to start a bunch of frankly relatively easy to get going legitimate businesses that make a ton of money in your state and weed's illegal, there's a great way to take a lot of the pressure off the drug war, put money into people's pockets, and get the giggles on a Friday evening, if you so choose. It's not going to solve everything, but it's somewhere to start. Worth considering. Folks, it is a 2 for Tuesday. I will be back in the late night. I hope to see you then. But if you only tuned in for this, hey, I appreciate it. And I would also very much appreciate a like if you got the click in you, and a subscribe if you think you want to see more of your old pal Jake. See you later. This has been Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do.